Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. So, I want to start with this. It's kind of a weird / interesting kind of a deal here. I've been doing a bunch of digging to find out how legit this is as opposed to just being, not legit, but it seems to be somewhat of a smaller story. Maybe you've already heard this, but there are groups out there that are real big into merchandise and memorabilia and all that kind of stuff. So, when teams have new uniforms, they're apparently on the ball. I'm just learning this today. There's a site, for example, called UniWatch, UNI-watch.com, all about watching uniforms and stuff. And there's some speculation about the Packers adding a new helmet this year. In fact, I think it's beyond speculation. I think the Packers are adding a new helmet this year. And just a little background, because again, I'm out of the loop when it comes to all the merchandise stuff. So apparently it was, I think, 2013. This is, the height of the concussion stuff with all that. They started getting rid of all the different kinds of helmets that you can use because they wanted to be real strict on that. They instituted a one shell rule. In other words, you can only have one helmet, and that's it. You get one helmet. That's the helmet you wear. There's no swapping it out. We want to make sure there's no issues with a secondary helmet not being quite right, or there's some idea that your helmet will slowly form to your head or something. I have no idea. But this made it real difficult to do alternate stuff. If you wanted to do that, you had to strip all the decals off, repaint it, all this different stuff. And so for the most part, for example, if you look at the Packers alternate throwback helmet, which is just the all gold. Essentially, they just take the gold helmet, strip all the decals off, and call it good. In 2021, starting with the 2022 season, teams were allowed to use a second helmet shell. And then in 2024, they allowed a third helmet shell or design now. And so what this does is it allows teams to kind of dedicate helmets to different styles. I guess there is an expectation, there's somebody out there, again, this is a whole big community or whatever, that has gotten word or is already aware or whatever, that this new helmet, when it becomes available, is going to be significantly more expensive to purchase, a whatever you call it, a fake helmet thing or whatever, way more expensive to purchase than any other style of helmet. And the thought process is, because this can be just a dedicated throwback helmet, they're going to be able to do something a little bit cooler with it, as opposed to just a stripped-down version of the same helmet. And so one thought that this person, who apparently is extremely in the know and extremely accurate when it comes to this, and they've shown examples. Let me see what that school was. It was Illinois. So Illinois did a throwback day, and they had some pretty cool uniforms and whatnot, but the helmet is super cool. So it's a normal helmet, but they actually airbrush painted it to look leather and actually have like leather straps. So right now the Packers have a throwback gold helmet because the leather helmet was a gold leather helmet, but it doesn't look leather. It just looks like a gold helmet. This thing is a brown, like it's got like the actual leather airbrushing to it. So it's got like the different, like darker patches and lighter patches. It's got the stitching painted in. It's even got the different holes kind of put in there, whether they're real ones or fake ones. Some of them are real, some of them fake. It's super cool looking. There was also a Washington Redskins throwback back in the day. This must have been just prior to the changes that they made. It was a throwback, but it was in all brown. And it wasn't quite as detailed as the Illinois one, but it had the leather airbrushing to it. So it looks leather. So the thought process is the Packers, when they do their throwback day, when they have their sort of brown outfits on, instead of just the normal gold helmets, they might actually come out. It's still going to be gold color because in the 50s or whatever, it was a gold leather helmet. but it was a leather helmet. So they might actually try to make it look more authentic with some leather airbrushing to make it's still going to be the same helmet, but to make it look, as far as how the patterns, how the stitching, the leather kind of wear on it and whatnot, that may be what they're rolling out this year. In fact, good old Twitter, I just typed it in, and of course somebody did a mock-up of it. It looks fantastic. I mean, it's very much like the Illinois helmet. It's got like the leather straps on it and whatnot, and all the leather, like with the rivets or whatever you call that, the texture of it. But it is like a faded dark gold color. Oh, I don't usually like all this stuff. I think it's kind of like whatever. It grows on me over time. This is the first time I've looked at one. I'm like, this would be cool. This would be very, very cool if they could do something like this. So we shall see. I don't think there's anything official that's come out yet, other than there will be a new helmet, and there's going to be more ability to do stuff with this new 3 helmet rule, and the fact that apparently this helmet, if you wanted to buy it at like Packers Pro Shop or whatever, significantly more expensive, which would probably mean that there's some reason for that. Airbrushing and all this would be a more expensive process to produce it. So they'd have to sell it at a higher price. So it's probably not just your generic gold or brown or any single color like, we've seen. So we'll see. I don't know if that's going to be a thing. Like I said, I just happened to stumble across that and did a little digging, and it sounds like they're... I think we probably already talked about the fact that they're going to reintroduce... I care so little that I probably just brushed through it when the news came up. But this little detail about how now that they're allowing... And this, again, happened technically last year. I don't know when last year and if anybody took advantage of it or what. But now that they've got a third, you can kind of have your... I'm guessing for the Packers, they have their gold and their white, right? So you have your normal gold helmet. You've got your whiteout helmet. Then you've got your throwback, where you take the decals off the gold helmet. Now, what do you do with this next helmet? You know what I mean? I'm saying airbrush that bad boy. I'm freaking all in, man. It's weird because, and this was kind of a long time ago, but I remember when Oregon started going crazy with like all their stuff, and people were like, oh, it's so stupid. I was one of the guys who was like, that's actually kind of dope, dude. I kind of like wild and crazy. As much as I'm not big into like the merchandise and all, like the throwback, and I don't super care. You start getting wild and crazy, and you got my attention. And I think airbrushing some leather helmets on some friggin' brown jerseys for the Packers as a real throwback to give it a legit throwback look. I'm a fan, but we'll see. Something else. Very loosely ties to the NFL, but again, it's off-season, and it is extremely interesting, and it will tie into the NFL. I am not a big college football guy. I need to do better at kind of paying attention to what's going on over there, because it does bleed very much into the NFL. I just saw Andrew Brandt tweet this out and then did a little bit of a deep dive, and it's one of those things where it's like I had to ask and ask and ask and ask again, because it's like, is the AI hallucinating here? Because AI, it's good, but it's very bad at hallucinating. And sometimes when you lead it in a direction, it'll just be like, oh, yeah, for sure. Sometimes it's great and it pushes back on you. And sometimes it's just like, oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%. Whatever you say, stupid idiot human. So I had like Grok tell me about it. And then I had a different AI fact check it. And then I had another one tell me about it. I didn't know, because it feels like a pretty big deal. And I suppose if you're you're a college football person, probably is. But this whole NIL thing has been pretty massive. And again, as not being fully immersed in college football as I should be, I don't fully understand the ins and outs and what has changed and how things are going to change. I've speculated quietly to myself, because again, I'm just going to sound stupid if I try to say it out loud, because I don't know how these things work. It's obviously been pretty massive, at least in certain ways. NIL has allowed... I shouldn't say allowed. That's the exact opposite way to put it, and I'll get to that in a reason. It has essentially mandated that colleges are required to allow students to pursue name, image, and likeness things, which is it's weird. I guess it's not really weird, because college teams want to do it, but the NCAA, I guess, was opposed to it. I should have asked that question because I don't fully understand it. Because obviously, colleges have been throwing money at players for a long time under the table, and maybe they're the ones that don't want this to be a thing because then they can have a monopoly. As long as I'm, relying on other teams to follow the rules, I can continually have an advantage. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But it has changed the landscape pretty drastically to where you have people in college that are millionaires before they come to the NFL. Rightly or wrongly is not the question anymore. I suppose it's right. There are reasons why I'm weary of it, but at the same time, what right do you have to tell a 17-year-old kid that you're not allowed to make money? You know what I mean? If my kid was, I guess, I don't know when the NIL deals start, but if he was going into college and not only was somebody saying, we'll pay for your college, but there's a bunch of other people saying, we'll give you $100,000 for this. Another says, I'll give you $400,000 for this. What am I going to tell him? No? I'm trying to encourage my kids to do whatever they want. Start a YouTube channel. You might make $4. Of course I'm going to tell them go make money. Anyways, this is just starting to impact the NFL in certain ways. I just speculated this past year for the first time because the Packers got a bunch of older players, and it's very unusual. Now, there's this idea that the Packers are unique in that they like to get super young players. Every team likes to get super young players, just like, the Packers are super unique in wanting high RAS guys. Pretty much every team is that way. Packers are maybe a little bit higher than the average, but I don't think much in either category. But there were several older players this year, and I just speculated, I wonder, because of, COVID gave people an opportunity to go back to college. So you had some people that decided to go back and they're staying in college. And so there was kind of a not this past draft, but 2 drafts ago, 2024, they were short. They were like, there's no people here because the class that should be getting out, like the final class, just didn't. They went back because of that COVID year. So 2025, there was this explosion of more players, but also I think more older prospects, partially because of the super seniors, but also there's incentive to not leave. I mean, if you're going to be the number 1 overall pick, fine. Shedeur Sanders is probably the one example of somebody that got a little bit screwed on that, presumably thinking he's going to be an early first-round pick and would have stayed in college making a ton of money if he'd have known he was going to fall where he did. But it is what it is. But at the same time, I don't know how much NIL impacts every single player. I know it obviously impacts at a high level, the high-level players, the 5-star prospects. I don't know about the 3-star, 2-star, 1-star, 0-star prospects, if they're even being touched by NIL deals. Probably not so much. Well, the story finally becomes interesting when you look at Andrew Brandt tweeted out, we have final approval of revenue sharing with student athletes in college sports. Cap will begin July 1st. And I thought, what the heck are you talking about? What? And he quote tweeted Sam Ehrlich, who says, breaking, Judge Wilkin grants final approval to the House settlement. And it's this whole spiel here. I don't know what the heck it is. I didn't know any of this was going on. And essentially, there's kind of a 2-parter in this settlement here. And remember what I said before about NIL is not something that colleges are allowed to do. It's something that the Supreme Court said you must do. It's important because the second part, we'll get to the first part, which has to do with that in a second, is revenue sharing. It allows schools, and I believe there's an opt-in here, but I can't imagine if you have any intention of being competitive that you're not going to opt in. It says, allows schools to legally and openly share revenue with current athletes beyond scholarships and NIL. Schools can now pay athletes up to 22% of average athletic department revenue with a cap of $20.5 million per year, which is going to grow over time. So essentially, college football will have a salary cap starting at $20.5 million. Now, I don't know the finances of some of these schools. Obviously, there are going to be bigger athletic programs that this is going to be a piece of cake. I mean, $20.5 million of their revenue is not going to be that big of a deal. I'm guessing there's also several where 22% of their revenue, if they decide to give up that much to their students, isn't even going to equal the 20.5. I could be wrong. Maybe we're talking super small not even D1 schools. I don't know. I know these institutions are massive, but whatever. It does feel like it has a little bit of a rich get richer feel to it, which I think college has kind of always been that way. This is part of a negotiation as a condition of settling the lawsuit to avoid future antitrust claims. What the heck does that mean? Essentially, this is just sort of this is not the main crux of the settlement. This was just sort of we're going to do this to further settle the initial lawsuit as well as try to avoid future problems. The initial lawsuit comes from college football players from 2016 to 2021, the pre-NIL era, going back only a certain number of years, obviously, who missed out on NIL, saying the court ruled that you were wrong in saying that I wasn't allowed to collect NIL money, and now you owe me money. And this judge essentially said, fair enough. So NCAA and conferences are going to pay $2.8 billion over 10 years to settle past damages and avoid more lawsuits. So to avoid any more lawsuits, they're giving $2.8 billion and paying $20.5 million per year. This whole NIL thing has been such a disaster for colleges who've been trying to keep money out of college football. Again, I know some colleges have been doing this already, so it's not that big of a deal. But boy, if you really did want to keep money out of college football, that is so far out the window, it's insane. Now, it gets further interesting. It's less interesting for any sport except football, because of that $20.5 million, remember, that's throughout their entire athletic program. However, for college football, they get 75% of that. Why? Because they're the biggest revenue generator, obviously. So you're looking at about $15.375 million per year this year that if you opt in, will get distributed to players. Now, where there seems to be either gray area or I don't know the answer is how the money is distributed. Because it's not booster money. You can't just say, okay, here's $15 million, go get the best player. This money will be distributed to your team. So, for example, in football, you've got 85 scholarship players. You're looking at $150,000, $200,000 per player. Again, I don't know that it has to be perfectly equal, but just to get a general idea, maybe it's like, $20,000 or $50,000 for some of the low-end players and $500,000 for some of the high-end. I don't really know. But just to give a general idea, $20.5 million, 75% of that goes to money, and across all scholarships, you're talking about $200,000-ish per student athlete. So now not only are some people getting rich, everybody's getting paid. So if you could just slide into that Bama locker room, boy, or Ohio State, I know Bama's not the cool team anymore, but still, I'm sure there's a lot of money there. You get you a scholarship, man, you're doing all right. Again, this is before NIL. You're on scholarship, so you're not paying for school, and you're making, $150,000, $250,000, $400,000, whatever it is. And if you're any good, you're getting some NIL deals, which probably far exceed that. But now you have even further down the roster guys. So now maybe you're talking about UDFAs. Why I'm staying in school, dude? I'm having a good time. I'm dominant here. Plus, you got to remember, there are some UDFAs that are like Tennessee running backs that are dominant running backs at pretty big schools. So they're probably getting decent money from this. You're probably getting decent NIL money. You think I'm going to come out and go be a UDFA or a 7th-round pick or a 6th-round pick? Like, I'll get there eventually, but I'm not massively in a rush here. That's just my thought. I don't know. But if there's any chance, if you're talking about a guy that's making money and there's any chance they're not going to make an NFL roster and are going to end up working at Menards, I'm not leaving college till you kick me out. Again, first, second, third-ish, fourth-ish maybe round. But again, you start talking about those guys, those are the best of the best. And those guys are making serious money, so they're even less inclined. So, outside of like lock first-round picks, maybe some second-rounders hoping to sneak into the first, it's going to be hard jarring some of these people away from college football. Potentially. I don't know. I don't know how people will decide to make their decisions. if you're a super talented quarterback, you're watching the NFL and these guys making $50 million and you're like, this college thing, screw this, I'm out of here. But very interesting, and I will be real interested to kind of follow along with that and see, first of all, how teams are handling it. I'm assuming, again, pretty much all of them would opt into it. Maybe not, but again, it's going to be pay to play in college football. You got NAL for the top guys. You got this settlement thing, this college football cap system that's going to help round out your roster. I mean, first and foremost, every person is going to one of these schools unless they have no other options. I mean, even if I don't get a single NIL deal, if you're talking $200,000 a year and I'm there for 4 years, or I could do all 5 years, it's $1 million in 5 years as a 3-star guy that probably won't make it in the NFL. You know what I mean? Whereas before, the NFL was really your only hope. Kind of. Again, I know there was a lot of under-the-table stuff, but still. But with that, why don't we go ahead and take our first break? We'll be right back. Alrighty, folks. So a couple things. I did finally push the changes over from PackersGames.com. Still kind of working through some stuff, but I figure it's enough for you to go check it out. Go sign up for an account, and you can start betting right away and whatnot. Kind of need your help working out some of the kinks anyways, so that when it's time to go, we can do it. The other thing that I added to it, something that I've done in the past, I needed it for this podcast, and I was like, let's just add it. So I want to add some tools to use, and it's sort of like a salary cap calculator, because what I want to talk about now is looking at contracts, specifically Zach Tom, and we'll see where we can go from there. If you remember, or if you even heard the podcast, the way that I decided to start looking at contracts is percentage of the cap over the course of the contract. So let me give you an example, because it's pertinent to what we're going to be talking about with Zach Tom, and that is Penei Sewell. So right now, if you go Google Penei Sewell's contract, here's what you're going to see. 2024 to 2029 rookie extension, Penei Sewell signed a 4-year, $112 million contract, including $15 million signing bonus, $85 million guaranteed, and an average annual salary of $28 million. Now, I read that kind of fast, but if you stop and think for a second, something in there doesn't make sense. It's $15 million signing bonus, okay, $85 million guaranteed, $28 million per year, 4 years, $112 million. That all adds up, right? 4 times 28, 112. Seems right. But it's 2024 to 2029. That's 6 years. I don't understand. I thought it was 4 years. It's a 4-year extension. And this is where a lot of people get super thrown off with this crap, because they'll say, oh, he got a $28 million per year deal. No, he didn't. He's not getting paid $28 million per year. It's the extension happens to be that they tacked on something that if you just look at the 4 years, it ends up being $28 million per year. But so what? The full term from 2024 when he signed it through 2029, excluding the 2030 void year, which is 6 years, is 139, slightly under, 139 million over 6 years. So the contract that they negotiated with Penei Sewell starting in 2024 is $23 million per year for the next 6 years. The idea that he got $28 million per year is fiction. But there's another part to this, because obviously if he had signed $23 million per year in 2024, 2025, whatever, compared to 2010, compared to 2005, compared to 2018, it's a very different thing. It's also different if it's a 1-year, 2-year, 3-year, because the salary cap goes up. Let's just do some simple math. Let's say the salary cap is $100 million, just for the sake of easy math. If it's a 1-year deal for $23 million, that's 23% of the cap. That's massive. What if it's a 2-year deal, and next year it goes up to 110? Well, then next year it's 21%. So it's 23 and 21, so the average is 22%. If you go up 10% every year, let's say for the next 10 years, that's going to have a very different overall percentage. Remember, they want it to seem like a really big contract, and for fans, they want you to be super pissed. I mean, not really, but kind of. They want you to think this is a massive contract, and oh, how are we going to afford this? $28 million per year, which, what is the salary cap this year? So based on, I think, last year's cap, it's almost exactly 10%. Oh, 10% of the salary cap for one player is crazy. It's not 10%, right? If it's a one-year deal in 2024, it's 10.96%, roughly. I got to check the calculator and make sure it's the right numbers, whatever. If you take that same number and do it over 4 years, it drops to 9.7%. But what if we actually look at the full contract? What if we look at it for what it is? $23.1 million per year over 6 years. That drops the percentage down to 7.46% of the cap. So in real numbers, in other words, if I were to convert that to how our brains work and say, what if we just called this a one-year deal? What is Penei Sewell's $28 million worth in 2025 money? It's $20.83 million. In other words, if you were to take a contract, give him a one-year deal that had the same salary cap impact, the salary cap would be $20.83 million. That's what Penei Sewell essentially is making. So think about it in terms of every year, Penei Sewell's impact is going to be roughly whatever 20.8 million is in your mind. By the way, I'm using my calculator to do all this if you wanted to play around with stuff. It's a premium feature, but it's fun. So, by the way, what I can do here, just so you know, because I know you can't see this, I can put in the player's name, their salary, which is $23.1 million. First year of the contract is 2024, and it's over 6 years. That's how I get, and it'll show you 2024, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and what the actual cap hit percentage of the cap is going to be, as well as the estimated cap hit that year. But then it'll show you at the top 7.46%. What I added to this that I didn't have in the last one is you can go back and select cap percentage. So I went back in and I said, player name, cap percentage 7.46, 2025 season for 1 year, it's 20.83. Telling you that because it's interesting, but also we can now use this to look at Zach Tom. Let's say we want to give Zach Tom the Penei Sewell contract. Everybody's going to tell you that means you have to give him $28 million per year. No, it doesn't. Because there's a couple different variables here. $28 million this year compared to 2024 is less, first of all. However, Penei Sewell also had 2 years on his deal. Zach Tom has 1. That makes a massive difference. So let's do this. Let's say, I'm going to change the name to Tom. The cap percentage we're going to keep at 7.46%, which is what Penei Sewell got. His first year is going to be 2025, which is correct. And then as far as how many years on the contract, we're going to give him a 4-year extension, which is 5 total years. Like Penei Sewell has 6, this is 5 because the difference in whatever. If we update the player and then look at it, what that means, if you wanted to give Zach Tom the Penei Sewell contract, it's not $28 million per year. It's $24.44 million average annual salary. Now, that's not what his extension number is. That's going to be a bigger number because you got to eat up all this nonsense or whatever. But that will be the real numbers of $24.44 million. If we wanted to go back and do the math on it, let me pull up Zach Tom's contract. He's got 1 year here with $3.5 million on the books. So in total, Zach Tom's contract would be $122 million over 5 years, right? If we subtract the 3.5 from that, you get $118.7 million. Divide that by 4, and you get, and again, this is where everyone's going to be shocked and they're going to freak out. Oh, I can't believe this. The contract extension would be a 4-year, $29.7 million extension. Everybody would see that. Their heads would explode. They would say, this is insane. I can't believe you're doing this. This is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. But remember, the real numbers would be $24 million over 5 years. And the percentage would be 7.4%. That's if you want to give him the Penei Sewell contract. And I don't know that he gets the Penei Sewell contract. The thing is, the Packers could come in here and say, okay, we'll give you the $28 million extension. So let's reverse engineer that one. $28 million over 4 years. So it would be a 4-year, $112 million contract, nice and easy and simple. Add on the $3.5 million, you get in total, and this is not what they're going to report because it's a much smaller number. The extension, again, 4 years, 112. The total contract, though, is 5 years, $115.5 million, which is in reality a $23 million per year contract. That would be, again, Penei Sewell got almost 7.5% of the cap. This would be 7.14. And that's assuming you're giving him a 4-year extension. You can give him a 5-year or whatever. They probably won't because 4 years would put him right at 30. Actually, no, put him at 31 because he's 26 now, and it would be the first of his 5 total years. By the way, Tristan Wirfs is actually now the highest paid right tackle at $28.1 million. Penei Sewell right at 28. So that does kind of seem to be right around. I doubt they're going to be able to do too much less than that. Lane Johnson drops all the way down to 25, and then Jawan Taylor all the way down to 20. So it's massive jumps, orders of magnitude. And actually, interestingly enough, Tristan Wirfs got more than Penei Sewell, and it looks like he probably just had the 1 year on his contract or something. Because his salary cap hit is significantly high. In other words, the cost of Tristan Wirfs' contract is way higher than what Penei Sewell's is. It's 8.62% of the cap for Tristan Wirfs. So again, I do expect this to be a relatively large number, and it's going to be announced as an extension, which ignores the fact that it's going to be distributed over an extra year, which is going to drop the average pretty significantly. So you're going to hear $27, $28, $29 million per year. So it's probably somewhere around there. If it's less than that, that's fantastic. If it's more than that, we got to revisit it and kind of see exactly how much more we're dealing with here. I can't imagine it touches Tristan Wirfs. Let's see what that would look like. So that would be a real $28 million per year deal. They would have to give him a 4-year, $34 million per year extension to touch what Tristan Wirfs got. There's just no way. That would be bonkers crazy. I would doubt it touches 30, but even if it did, again, we'll come back and look at the specifics of it. It's never going to be as big of a deal as they make it sound, and all the cap doom and gloomers out there are going to hear the numbers and going to have just an absolute panic attack. Like every time we've ever signed any big player, how are we ever going to afford this? That's too much money. I can't believe it. This is just how it works. The numbers are kind of fake. And again, what I like about this tool or looking at it this way is it provides some perspective. So if you look at Penei Sewell's contract, again, the real number is $23 million per year. That accounts for 9% of the cap. But of course, nobody's looking at it that way. But let's just look at it like that. In 2025, this year, it accounts for 8%. In 2026, 7.7%. In 2027, 7%. In 2028, 6.5%. And in 2029, it accounts for 6%. To give you some idea of what that contract looks like by the time he's at the end of his contract, it's a $16 million deal. This is why, by the way, we absolutely go into a panic when we look at how much money somebody makes. And then by the end of their deal, we're thinking, this guy's massively underpaid. I can't believe it. This is why, we get upset about Kenny for being one of the highest paid guys, and then you actually look at it and it's like, actually, he's really not that highly paid anymore. Probably still overpaid, but saying that he's one of the highest paid guys is just not accurate at this point. So as far as the real contract, if I had to guess, I would say it's going to end up being about $24 million over 5 years. In terms of the extension, right around $28 million, similar to what Tristan Wirfs and again, they're very different contracts, and Tristan Wirfs' contract is much bigger. But in terms of what the social media dollar amount is going to say, somewhere around the $28 million, I think, is what Zach Tom's going to get. And again, if he gets less than that, that is just phenomenal for us. Because remember, $28 million in 2025 is less than $28 million in 2024. Already it's less. So we'll see how that ends up going. I would think that the contract will probably get done when they usually get these big deals done, post-training camp, regular season, maybe between the preseason and the regular season, somewhere in there. But that should get done. As far as the Jair and Elton thing, that's a completely different discussion. It's a little bit harder to kind of estimate because I'm not exactly sure the terms of what we're trying to get accomplished. I know Elton would like some security. I'm sure there's a bunch of different ways to go about doing that. I don't know if he's including some money in that, or if he's fine with the money that he has, or if he probably wants some more years, because the thought is if I end up getting another contract, it's going to be as a center, and that's going to be less money. So I'd like to kind of secure my future with, the guard money, which I'm sure he wanted to be a tackle and already got freaking screwed on that a little bit. So I'm thinking that's the process, but I don't know. I'm shooting in the dark here and would probably end up in the wrong way. Same with Jair, because I don't know if this is... Are we looking for him to take some kind of a big cut? Is it a matter of, just coming back largely on where you are? Are we changing this to an incentive-laden contract? I don't know. I'm not really sure. But as far as Zach Tom, it's a little bit more straightforward because we know kind of what they're, the goal is. We're just going to extend him as our future right tackle. Can certainly do this with some other guys, but I especially like with the wide receivers, I'd like a little bit more clarity. I don't know what Dobbs' future here. I don't know what Watson's future is. I would assume Watson gets an extension, but it may be in the form of like a 1 year, 2 year kind of prove it thing just because of his circumstances. Same with Dontavian Wicks. I just don't know. I'd love to be able to do this with Rasheed Walker, but they're actively trying to boot him out of his own position. Sean Ryan is also a 2022 guy. I have no idea what his situation is, but there's several other guys that we can look at maybe when we get a little bit more information. Devontae Wyatt, Lucas Van Ness, which, by the way, why some of these guys, it's a big year, You're going to have to prove something here. Quay Walker, same thing. And maybe they I think the speculation is he's going to get some kind of a contract before the season starts, but, they may want to see what he can do. I don't know. Based on what he's done so far, it's not going to be a banger of a contract. I know they like him, and they, see a role for him and all that, but he's not going to get some massive linebacker contract. Same with Kingsley, another 22 guy. If this was, 2 years ago or last year, you'd feel a lot better about it, but last year was a real rough year. I think the switch really hurt him. He's firmly behind Van Ness, Gary, and is in he had a worse year, I think, than Aaron Mosby and Brenton Cox, and we drafted Barron Sorrell. I don't know exactly what his status is going to be. So, we got to kind of sort some things out, kind of let these things fall into place and get an idea. But clearly the one big one that needs to get done, that I'm excited to get done, is going to be Zach Tom. I think he's going to get a big payday, and I think it's going to be very well deserved. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of panic because it is going to be a very big number. It's probably going to look like Penei Sewell, and then everyone's going to freak. He shouldn't be getting the Penei Sewell contract. Okay, well, he didn't get the Penei Sewell contract. We did this before with Jordan Love. That's what it was. It was the question of Jordan Love and his contract, and that's when I initially created a calculator, at least similar to this, with the intention of trying to get real numbers. The whole big thing was Joe Burrow. Does he deserve the Joe Burrow contract? You have no idea what you're talking about if you think if he gets the same APY as Joe Burrow that he's getting the same contract as Joe Burrow. It's not even close. Not even close as a percentage. And it wasn't. But people look at the APY, and then that's basically the totality of it. So, again, the tools here, I did make it a premium thing, so if you're not interested, that's fine. I'm looking to add some more tools. I already have one that I've used for a long time that I just think is kind of fun. Because it's one thing I've always said is special team stats suck. And I don't know fully what to do with it, but one of the things I've always wanted is a punt calculator that, we know about distance and we know about hang time, but how do we compare the two? Like if somebody has 4-second hang time on a 60-yard punt compared to 5-second hang time on a 45-yard punt, which punt was better? And it's tough because usually you're not doing full blast. You're trying to get it inside the 10. But still, which one was more of a banger? Well, we can do math to figure it out. Why don't we? So we'll see about that. I might even add like a database in there if I can go pull that data as far as punts and which ones have been actually the biggest. I think I'll be able to do that, especially since I already have a database for this website. If I can just upload those numbers into here, be able to figure that out. But if I can find a way to like actually do special team stats, especially punting, and field goals would be nice as well. Just as I'm sitting here thinking about it, I'm guessing there is one of the metrics everybody loves is above expected. Well, we should know roughly the expected field goal make percentage on a given distance, right? So figure it out from there. All right. I think that's about it for what I wanted to do here. Why don't we take a break? We'll take some more calls. We do have enough to actually do Packernet After Dark, but I'm still going to use it as a part 3 here. So, again, check out PackersGames.com. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
What up? It is Carson Caldwell from Cleveland, Ohio.
What's up, dude?
And today I'm going to call in and talk about how you think that, or you were saying about J.J. McCarthy and the Vikings, that you don't know if it's real, all the hype, all this stuff. You don't know if they're actually believing this, like Bears fans do and all that stuff. But you always say, oh, I hope it's real. I hope it is, because if he turns out to be bad, then you can, make fun of them and stuff. And, I'm about to tell you, this is as real as it gets. From 9 hours ago, okay, so right now it is 10:08 on Wednesday night. So 9 hours ago, J.J. McCarthy's passing touchdown line for this season is set at 25.5 passing touchdowns. That is higher than Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, Tua Tagovailoa, Matthew Stafford, Justin Herbert, C.J. Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, and basically every quarterback not named Josh Allen, Lamar, Patrick Mahomes, Baker, Goff, and Burrow.
It's crazy.
It's insane. All right, so that's as real as it gets. The line for his passing on all the sports books is 25.5. So, number one, if you're looking to make some money, throw the under on that. And also, just so you know, this is real. They believe it. They're betting on it. Sports books are buying into it. So hopefully he turns out to be bad. And let me tell you, I am so excited for the Week 1 games, because you got the Packers versus the Lions. And so all this hype about the Lions and all this stuff that is just always there. Obviously, it's a little bit less this year, but when the Packers play the Lions Week 1, and if the Packers win, then boom, Lions hype is over. And then after that, Monday night, we get to sit back and watch Caleb Williams and J.J. McCarthy battle it out on Monday Night Football. I am so excited to watch that game. Almost as excited as I am to watch Packers-Lions. I'm excited to watch that Bears-Vikings game. So that's all I've got for you. Hopefully you get some more calls in, because I know you're a little bit short. So maybe if I think of something else, I'll try and call back in. But that's what I got for you today. Go, Pack, go. And, I'll see you next time.
I appreciate it, dude. And yeah, I was smart to look into that. I'll have to do a little bit of a deep dive into that myself, but that's pretty wild, man. That is pretty wild. I struggle to say that I would put money down on that, just because, again, they freaking did it with Sam Darnold. But assuming it's going to happen is also crazy. Like, I wouldn't put money on it either.
Oh my God, I'm watching Good Morning Football, Ryan, and they're talking about the Vikings legend who dies, and I'm not laughing that a Vikings legend died. I'm laughing because the guy was trying to say how he was part of the Purple People Eaters defense back in the day, but he slipped up and said Purple Peter Eater. I can't stop laughing.
This is why you listen, folks. This is it. This is peak Packernet After Dark right here.
Hi, Ryan. It's Randy from Minnesota.
What's up?
I was listening to your breakdown of Jordan Love, and I do have to tell you, I appreciate your honesty, and you're not just looking through it through green and gold goggles. I think a lot of things you said what you said is right. But I'm going to be the optimistic Packer fan, which in June I can be an optimistic Packer fan. I'm going to go with last year was such a learning experience for Jordan that he realized, and like he said, he's got to get back to the basics of footwork.
Yeah.
He's got to get back just to the basics of understanding what his body needs to be doing when he's throwing the ball. I agree with you 100%. There were a lot of bad throws, and but I think we see enough of Jordan to know that's not him. The injuries made him get off his game. made him forget his fundamentals, and I think that's what caused it. And the optimistic, Packer fan in me is saying he's learned. Sean Mannion is already talking about getting him back to having his feet on the ground when he throws. And I'm optimistic, again, that he learned from last year, and this season he's going to blow the doors off people. So that's all I got with that. But like I said, I do want to thank you for not going all Chicago Bear on this and thinking he can walk on water. So appreciate it. Appreciate the honesty. Keep doing what you're doing. Go Pack, go. Bye.
Yeah, and I don't know that I really disagreed with anything you're saying. I push back on the idea that he didn't regress, in that he wasn't playing poorly. The question of why and the question of whether or not that's going to improve, that's a whole different issue. And I don't know that I've even really contemplated where I stand on that spectrum in terms of how much do I think that he's going to improve as opposed to he's not going to or whatever. I tend to be a pretty pessimistic person in general, so it's not a Jordan Love thing as much as it's a me thing, but I certainly hope, and I love the optimism, and I'm just very much hoping that things go very, very well for him and for the Packers this year as a result.
Brian Burgess Benny here.
Yo.
Just found out that Rodgers is going to be a Steeler.
Yeah.
There. I pretty much saw that one coming.
Meant to throw that in there, too, that it's officially official. He signed his contract. We can go over the details maybe tomorrow. I don't know.
And we play the Steelers this year at Pittsburgh.
Correct.
I so badly want to beat them in that game. Man, imagine Jordan Love beating the guy who taught him how to quarterback. Well, didn't really teach him how to quarterback, because you get what I'm saying, taught him a lot of things. It would just be freaking poetic, man.
I don't want to win as much as I want to not lose. Beating Rodgers, it's whatever. Losing to Rodgers would be freaking miserable.
Awesome. Because if I'm being honest, dude, I've been past the whole Rodgers thing for a while. I love Rodgers. Love what he did for us. He was so fun to watch, man. But Jordan Love's our quarterback. And that's my dog, bro. And I want to see him ball out against Pittsburgh Steelers, man. And I think he can. And I think our defense can hold Rodgers. Obviously with Packers knowing him pretty well and how he does stuff. I'm sure Tomlin, though, it depends on what Tomlin wants to do, but they're going to cater to his ass. Do whatever he wants. So he's going to be about the same, do the same type of things. Man, I think that's going to be an awesome matchup. And I hope it's kind of like a shootout, but I hope we win. But also, I would rather just dominate. I would rather just blow them out. So, yeah, dude, let me know what you think about the Rodgers thing. I'm kind of over Rodgers.
Shootouts are only great after the fact. I don't think I ever really wanted a game to be a shootout because it just means your defense sucks. But if you win a shootout, it's always fun. In hindsight, it was a fun game to watch.
And you know what I mean? It's just he's not a Packer, so I don't really care. It is what it is. I'm honestly tired of talking about him. People talking about him. Yeah, he's my GOAT, bro, but I don't know. Does that make sense? I don't really care. I care about the Green Bay Packers and what they do and how they can win games. So let's win that one. Let's win them all. Let's go to the Super Bowl. Go Pack, go.
Does it make sense? I don't know that it makes sense to call in to talk about him and say you're tired of talking about him, but it does make sense to say you're tired of talking about it. I'm not tired of talking about him. I feel like I've been pretty consistent on that point. I've always enjoyed the drama. They said the only bad thing about Rodgers leaving is the drama leaves, but fortunately the drama has followed him around and it's relevant enough that I can talk about it. I know some people don't want to talk about it. I don't really freaking care. I don't care. I like it. It's entertaining. It's good football. It's great content. You know what I mean? But I think I'm going to leave it at that. Appreciate you guys for calling in, and Well, I guess I don't have to tell you there's going to be a Packernet After Dark because it would have been for last night. So I'm going to get out of here. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.